Good day, everyone, and welcome to the EPA National Environmental Justice Community Engagement Call for today, June 25th, 2024. Just a moment. Okay. My screen has frozen, but just to keep moving forward, um, there are a few housekeeping rules, and please mute your line if you're calling or if you're on the web, but please mute your lines. And definitely, if you want to ask questions after the presenters have presented, you can feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A pod, or you can raise your hand and we will call and unmute you, allow you to be unmuted so that you can ask your questions. And also, we do have interpreters. There's a globe at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on your computer, that you can go into the Spanish room to hear everything in Spanish. However, if you do go into that room, the only way you can come back to the English channel, you would have to exit and come back in. And also, just a note for our presenters to speak slowly so that the interpreters can keep up with you. And we will now have and also, I'm sorry, I would like to acknowledge a few events going on this month. For the month of June, we have Pride Month, which was inspired by the Stonewall riots, which was a series of gay liberation protests. And in 1999, Bill Clinton declared June the anniversary of the Stonewall riots. And so every June since then, we've been recognizing June as Pride Month. And there's a very good documentary on PBS called Stonewall Uprising, which will give you the brief history about how Pride Month came about. And then also we celebrated last week Juneteenth, which is now a new federal holiday. And that's recognizing the day the enslaved people in Texas learned they were free. And just to give a short brief history, the Emancipation Proclamation was actually passed January 1st, 1963, and redefined the Civil War between the North and South. And June 19th was significant because that's when the enslaved in Texas learned that they were free. And Juneteenth is also the things that changed the Civil War. And another thing to make clear to people is that that document only applied to people enslaved in the Confederacy, and not so much the Union or the border states that supported the Union. So it's interesting to read about it, the Emancipation Proclamation. And without further ado, I will now introduce Christy Draper, who will give us our mindfulness moment.
Thank you so much. As Erica said, my name is Christy Draper, and I'm the QA manager for the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Measurement and Modeling Division down in Gulf Breeze, Florida, and I'm also a mindful EPA facilitator. So welcome. At Mindful EPA, we generally define mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment on purpose and without judgment. But what are the benefits of mindfulness? Well, mindfulness reduces stress and increases overall happiness. It boosts attention, memory, and focus, and it builds resilience and helps us be more effective at everything we do. Our body is a feedback system, and using our mind-body connection, that's usually where we first feel stress, is in the body. But the good news about that is we can use that mind-body connection, and if we calm the body, we can calm the mind. So a little bit about the biology. The sympathetic nervous system, that's known as the fight or flight system. It is not directly in our control. It is activated when we are stressed or scared and manifests in shallow breathing. Plus, it dumps adrenaline and cortisol into our bloodstream. So think about how quickly you breathe when you're scared. We can control our parasympathetic nervous system, known as the rest and digest system, by activating the vagus nerve, which in turn will calm the sympathetic nervous system. So think of para, like paramedic coming to your own rescue. So by purposefully slowing down the breath and doing a long exhale, the feedback from your body tells your brain that you are safe. And the body will naturally do this. It'll reset itself if you let it. And you can think of an extreme example. So think about seeing a little kid who's upset, really, really upset, and they're trying to breathe. And all of a sudden they'll just go, they'll just take 2 quick breaths in, and you can actually make yourself do that. And that's almost an instant, that quick inhale to inhale and that long exhale is almost an instant reset to the nervous system. But mindfulness exercises also build neuroplasticity in the brain. So in today's exercise, I'm going to ask you to focus on your breathing, and your mind is going to want to wander because that's what minds are supposed to do. They're built to scan the environment and wander as a survival mechanism. So no worries, this is not about perfection, it's about practice. And the good news is the awareness that the mind has wandered and bringing it back to the breath or whatever state of awareness you've chosen, that is what increases the neuroplasticity. So wander and come back, wander and come back. So I invite you to get comfortable, and participation is strictly voluntary. Do whatever's comfortable for you. This is your time. I invite you to sit or stand, alert but relaxed, and place the feet somewhere comfortable, grounded if possible, and let the hands relax in a natural position in the lap or by the side. Getting settled sends a message to the brain to pay attention to the present moment. I invite you to raise your shoulders and roll them back and let them drop, or shake out or stretch whatever removes tension that you might be carrying right now, and lift your spine, heart to sky. Chin slightly down. You are welcome to close the eyes or cast them downward to limit distractions. Do whatever resonates or is accessible to you. There is no right or wrong. And I'm going to invite you to take a few deep breaths, the deepest you have taken today. And with these breaths, inhale deeply through the nose and try to take that breath deep into the belly, known as diaphragmatic breathing. And when you are ready, slowly exhale through pursed lips, like blowing bubbles through a straw. It's called straw breathing. And this activates the calming effect in the brain. Now continue to take several deep breaths at your own pace. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the breath. And now I invite you to stay focused on the breath, but drop back to the natural breath. You may notice it's a little harder to stay focused on natural breathing than deep breathing. And this is because you are switching from deliberate deep breathing to the autonomic system, while trying to be aware at the same time. The mind starts to wander away from the breath, no judgment. Just imagine the thought as a leaf floating down a stream. Just let it go by and gently bring your thought back to the breath. And when you are ready, I invite you to take one more deep breath as you gently come back to the room. Slowly open the eyes if they were closed, and feel free to stretch or move as you need. And thank you for sharing this mindful moment.
Thank you so much, Christy. We definitely needed that, and I feel so much more relaxed.
You.
And I now would like to introduce Lakeisha Grant, our Acting Office Director, Office of Community Support.
Thank you so much for that, Erica, and thank you, Christy. I was doing well with staying focused until my phone rang. So next time I have to remember to put my phone on mute. But thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate your taking the time to spend a couple of hours with us this afternoon. And we have a full and interesting agenda. I'm just going to give a quick overview before I introduce our first speaker. So our community spotlight, we're excited to have the Community Infrastructure Center. They're going to do a demo for us today. That's going to be followed by an update on EPA's IRA Roadshow. And then after that, we'd like to give an update on our draft national program guidance. But before I turn it over, thank you, Erica, for acknowledging that this is a National Pride Month. And given that we had a federal holiday go by since we last met, I just wanted to quickly share a very brief poem that someone shared with me on Juneteenth. And it reminds me of the modern day struggle that we face with environmental justice. And this poem talks about Juneteenth and the freedom that reverberated in Texas after, the event when folks finally found out that they were free indeed. So it talks about the struggle, but it also reminds us of progress. So I just wanted to share this. It's a poem by Judy Sebastian, and it reads, Juneteenth, for every cage, a free spirit was born. For every chain, a free soul was unleashed. For every drop of blood, a hymn of hope was sung. For every life lost, another life fought back, no matter the cost. A slave no more, June 19, 1865, a free person for life. And yet, freedom is hard to find in a world that has gone blind to ones who get left behind. So thank you so much for being a part of this call. The fact that you're here means that you're among those who are trying to make sure that people aren't left behind when it comes to equity and environmental justice. Thank you for indulging me with that poem. It was very compelling to me, and I shared it a lot that day, and I thought it would be useful to share today. So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and she's going to be giving us our community spotlight, and I'm referring to Sarah Ortner, who is a senior associate at the Milken Institute's Center for Financial Markets. She works on the Institute's Excellence in Equity in Public Finance efforts. And her portfolio covers climate resilience, community infrastructure, deployment, and emerging markets. Before her role at the Institute, she worked in campaign finance and nonprofit development. Ortner holds a bachelor's degree in political science and mass communications from the University of South Florida and an MPA in public finance and public-private policy from George Washington University. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Lakeisha, and thank you for having me today. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Ortner. As Lakeisha said, I'm a senior associate at the Milken Institute Center for Financial Markets, and I work with the Community Infrastructure Center team as a community manager for both the platform and our 10,000 Communities initiative. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk everyone through the platform today. If anyone has any questions at any point, please feel free to put them in either the chat or the Q&A box, and I'll go ahead and monitor that and answer those questions at the end. But essentially, this is our Community Infrastructure Center platform. It was created and launched about a year ago after conversations with EPA. We were able to get a little bit of funding to build out our tech team and create the platform once we realized that there was a gap that was preventing communities from building infrastructure projects and getting them to the point where they were shovel ready. And we built this platform in order to connect them with the resources that they need in order to help accelerate these projects forward and break ground. And a lot of the work that we do is targeting specifically underserved rural and tribal communities across the country. But we are now funded by philanthropy, so we are able to offer our services free of charge to both user types. And essentially, to walk you through what user types we have on the platform, we have project sponsors who are going to be those communities that have infrastructure or climate resilience projects. And then we also have providers. So that could be a technical assistance provider, a project funder, a project developer, a consultant, a grant writer, basically anyone who is able to plug in with a community at a specific stage of their pre-development journey in order to help move them from one activity level to the next. And I'll go ahead and walk everyone through one of our demonstration projects here on the platform. So when a community with a project joins the platform, we ask for them to give us some information about their project, a detailed description of the scope, objectives, activities that have been completed, activities that have been identified as needing to be completed, funding that has already been committed, funding that they are currently interested in obtaining, project type, subtype, approximate cost, and then geographic location. Once we get all of that information from a community that has a project, within 2 minutes of them joining the platform and filling out their project's profile, we're able to match them with a list of funding matches. These funding matches are going to be federal, state, and local grant opportunities that we scrape from websites like grants.gov. Essentially, each of these opportunities has been indexed, and we provide a community with the match score, so how relevant we believe that to be to their project. If there's a funding match requirement, so if they need to bring in funding on their end in order to match with the grant's funding, and then a due date for that grant so that they can keep in mind how long they have until that grant is due and decide based on all of this information which opportunities they're going to pursue. Once they're able to get into the platform and fill out their project profile and get access to these grants, we ask them to identify about 3 to 5 of these grants that they're interested in applying for. That way we can understand what types of capital they're pursuing, and we can start matching them with private funders that we have on the platform as well. We have a network of philanthropy, impact capital, CDFAs, green banks, impact capital, a lot of different private funding sources that we're able to then match with the projects to help them build out a blended capital stack. The next step for a community on the platform is to complete our project readiness assessment. Our project readiness assessment was developed out by our partners at HRNA Advisors, and it's a detailed questionnaire that asks about a project's activities. So activities that either have been completed, need to be completed, or are not relevant to a project. They fill out information about what they've done so far and what they still need to do in order to obtain a total readiness score. So once they get this total readiness score, and you can see it's broken down by category, they're able to identify where the gaps currently exist in their project and what activities still need to be done. And when you scroll down, you can see specific activities that need to be completed before a project is considered shovel ready. This is how we're able to then match them with other types of providers on the platform. So technical assistants, grant writers, project developers, anyone who is able to help them complete one of these specific activities. And then once a provider has been matched to a project, they are able to come into the system and start assigning tasks to the project to be completed. So you can see a couple examples in here of activities that have been identified as missing for this project that have been assigned for them to complete. The next tab that I can walk everyone through is our member registry. So our member registry is exactly what it sounds like. It is essentially a Rolodex of every member of the platform. And you can search for individuals based on different filters as well. So if you're looking to connect with someone in particular, you can search for them based on their organization, their state, the organization type, areas of expertise, sectoral expertise, or service areas. And an example that I always like to give is for organization type, say you're interested in getting in contact with someone who works at a philanthropic organization. You can filter by philanthropy and you can see everyone that's currently within network that is connected to a philanthropic org.
Sarah, really quickly, sorry, before you keep going, we've got quite a few questions in the chat asking if you could share the URL, and I realized I didn't have that in my email.
Oh.
Could you take 2 seconds
Yeah.
and drop that into one of those responses? Then I can copy and paste it to everybody else, but just so we can get that out there to be responsive to that.
Absolutely.
It's in the Q&A. Thanks.
Perfect.
Awesome, great. Okay, I see that you're answering that. So for everyone who typed asking for that link, that is now in the Q&A pod, and then I'll go ahead and copy that and send that around to everybody else who asked. So thank you so much for that.
Perfect. Thanks, Christina. Okay. And then just to keep on going from where we're currently at, the next feature I can show is our knowledge base. So our knowledge base contains case studies, templates, data sets, programs, tools, resources, community trainings, and office hours that can be used by a community to either get a better picture of a specific activity that they need to complete, get assistance with sourcing data that they need for a grant application, finding relevant programs that currently exist, whether they're federal programs or private programs, and get access to some more of those tools and resources. The way that we get information in our knowledge base is essentially one of 2 ways. So we have members of our team who do research and upload information to the platform, but then we also have the opportunity for providers that are connected to the platform to upload their own internal resources in order to share those with the communities that they're working with. An example that I really like to give of how this works, about a year ago, the White House released a list of technical assistance programs that were coming out of the federal agencies. And it was a really valuable resource. There was a lot of information that was shared, but for an individual community, especially one with a low capacity, such as an underserved, a rural, or a tribal community that doesn't necessarily have a lot of resources, it was very difficult to understand exactly what programs were the most relevant to you. So what we did was we went through and indexed each of those opportunities separately. And you can see this is an example of one of them through the Thriving Communities program here at EPA. And you can see information about the program, eligible participants, program targets, the current status, if there's an application requirement, the budget for the program, and then you can view the resource directly on EPA's website as well. And then the last feature that I'll walk everyone through is our community feature. So this is a great way to network and share information with everyone that's on the platform. And there are a couple of different uses for the community feature. So if you are a project sponsor or a community that has a project, you're able to join different channels that exist. We have public channels, private channels, place-based, project-based, and program-based. So you can come in and you can see what channel might be relevant to you. These are all led by our partners. And if you're interested in joining a channel or getting connected to a specific group that you would like to work with or are already working with, you can view specific information about what it is that they're doing and how they're doing it. But you can also go to our community home and you can just broadly share information on the platform. You can ask questions, you can introduce yourself, you can view upcoming events, you can view resources that are being shared, and you can really just kind of share in the knowledge with other people who might have a similar project or might be providing a specific type of technical assistance that you're interested in obtaining. And it's just a really great way to kind of facilitate those conversations. And that's it for the platform features as a whole. And I would love to answer some questions if there are any specific questions that anyone has. I'm looking through the chat right now.
Yeah,
Where can we
so
find this funding database? Oh, sorry, Christina.
oh no, go ahead. That's fine. I was just going to ask how you wanted to do it. I can read them out and you can answer if you want to read them aloud. Just making sure that you read them aloud before you answer so that folks can hear that in case they can't see it on their screen. So sorry, go ahead, please take it away.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just go one by one. So where can we find the funding database? Is it free to use? The platform is absolutely free to use. You can create an account and sign up, and you do not need to upload a project or provide specific services in order to join the platform. You just have to give us your email and create a password. And our funding database is visible. So if you go into the platform and you click the funding tab, you can search for grants based on different filters. So you can search by agency, you can search by program, you can search by type of funding, geographic location. So you can search through our whole database. We have about 10,000 grants that are indexed on the platform. Does this program represent an ongoing relationship with technical assistance support from the organization for a community, or is this more the community checks in when they are looking for funding towards specific projects? So ideally, this is going to be an ongoing relationship with technical support. So once a project has been uploaded into the platform, they are able to get connected to the resources that are going to be moving them forward and accelerating them along. Sometimes that might be a one-off relationship, and that will only extend for the amount of time it takes for that activity to be completed. Sometimes it will be for the entirety of the project's development. So that very much depends. The length of the relationship is dependent on what the project's needs are, but ideally they are building ongoing connections. And then, are we partnered with EPA in any capacity, open to informing communities through standing relationships? We are not officially partnered with EPA in any capacity, or EPN, I'm sorry. We are not officially partnered with EPN in any capacity, but we have done work with EPN, and we are working with several of the EPA TIC-TAC regions who are also using EPN, so they're also a fantastic resource, and we have been lucky to have had the opportunity to work with them a couple of times. Are there any community solar projects or virtual solar power plants that have been successfully completed that we can use as best practice case studies? So the platform has only been live for a year now, so we have not seen a solar project specifically go through the entire pre-development life cycle. We do have solar projects on the platform who have gotten from one activity to the next, or who have successfully applied for grant funding, which is kind of how we're measuring our success, is how we're able to accelerate communities forward, since we haven't been live long enough to fully see that those projects get to shovel ready. Can the Milken Institute be used for nonprofit organizations looking for funding? Yes, absolutely. Anyone can be a project sponsor. If you are looking for funding for a community infrastructure or a climate resilience project as a nonprofit, you are more than eligible. I will say the only caveat to that is we specifically work with communities that have physical infrastructure projects. So depending on the type of funding that you're looking for, the platform would be a great resource. Recently, an error of, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these, but it looks like,
So if it's the question about Hawaii, I'm actually going to answer that separately.
oh, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is this platform only for CBOs or nonprofits, or can independent technical assistance be offered by an individual? Yes, it can, absolutely. It's not just for nonprofits. It really is just a marketplace of resources. So if you're providing technical assistance with a cost-based structure, we just ask that you provide information about that structure. And we can connect you with projects who have recently obtained funding to pay for those activities. Are most of your users communities, government, nonprofit? What's the makeup of the platform? I can actually share out after as a resource, but we do have information about the specific breakdown of communities versus nonprofits versus municipalities that we're working with. We do try to bring on an equal number of project sponsors and providers that we work with. So obviously, technical assistance providers are able to work with multiple projects, and projects will need multiple types of technical assistance. So we do try to make that as even as possible. Currently, we have about 900 organizations on the project, and it's about a 40-60 split, having 40% technical assistance or 40% providers and 60% project sponsors. It looks like Delia asked, how do we access the platform? I know Christina has that link and she's circulating the link to join. But once you get that link, if you create an account with your specific user type, either a project sponsor or a provider, it'll walk you through the process of giving the information that we need in order to get access to all of the resources. If you are an academic that works with communities, should you create an account as a provider or a project sponsor? I would create an account as a provider if you're working with multiple communities. And as a provider, you also are able to upload projects. So if you currently have a portfolio of projects that you're working with, you can upload those projects on behalf of the communities that you work with in order to get access to those resources. Are the funding grants only national, or are there listings by state grants or local or philanthropy or other searchable parameters? The grants that we have in our database from grants.gov are going to be federal state grant opportunities that are coming from either the federal government or the state government. And then the other types of funding that we have on the platform are searchable in our member registry. So you can search by philanthropy, CDFI, Green Bank, Impact Capital to find other types of funding sources that are available. Are fiscally sponsored nonprofit orgs able to find funding on the platform, or is it for standalone 501c3s only? It's not just for standalone 501c3s, not at all. Fiscally sponsored nonprofits are able to find funding, and basically anyone is able to find funding. So even if you are a for-profit organization, you're still able to find funding opportunities on the platform. Anyone can sign up to create an account and anyone can access the resources. What's the difference in the two sign-up options? Project sponsors are going to be communities that have projects that they're moving forward. They're the ones that are responsible for the entirety of the project's development until it becomes shovel ready. Whereas a provider is someone who is able to provide services to a project and move them from one activity to the next.
Great, thank you. And we do have someone with their hand raised, Melissa Garcia. I'm going to give you the opportunity. Oh, never mind. They took their hand down. Alrighty. Hopefully your question was answered by another one. So that sounds good. Alrighty. I don't see any more questions in the chat. Sarah, I just have a question just in general. When you say shovel ready, I mean, I think I know what that means, but just for everybody on the call and myself, like, can you go a little bit more in depth on what that means?
Yeah, so when we say shovel ready, essentially we mean that they are at a point where they are ready to break ground on their physical infrastructure project. They are at a point where they have done all of the background work necessary. They have a governance structure. They have the site acquisition. They have, all of the funding that they need in order to actually build out the structure, they have the resources in place, they have the crews ready. They've done everything that they need on the back end. They've gotten permitting from the city. All they need to do now is actually physically build it. So when we say shovel ready, we mean that they are at a point where they are no longer planning to build the project, but they are actually implementing the project.
Great, thank you so much. And we have one more question in the chat that asks, does it mean that even if I'm in the 501c3 process, I can continue?
Yes, absolutely. Anyone at all that has an infrastructure project is able to create an account and get access to the resources. We work with any type of community on any type of infrastructure project at any stage. So early, mid-stage, late stage, you just need a little bit of help getting over the finish line. We have resources that we would love to share with you.
All right, well, someone else just asked if this information is posted online. I will make sure I get them that link so they have it. But as of right now, Sarah, we don't have any more questions for you and your team as I see it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for having me. And if anyone has any more questions, I'll share my email in the chat as well. So please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for sharing. I mean, that's a robust tool and it's free. That's like icing on the cake. So thank you so much for doing that demo for us. So we are going to move right along. The next update that we're going to have on the agenda is an update from Dr. Larissa Mark and Ahmad Perez, and they're going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act Roadshow. So with that, I will turn it over to Ahmad and Dr. Mark.
Wonderful. Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you so much, Lakeisha, and happy Pride. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Ahmad Perez. I'm the Special Assistant for Implementation and Climate Justice here in EPA's Office of Air and Radiation. Dr. Larissa Mark won't be here this afternoon because she is actually getting ready for one of our events, which is taking place tomorrow. So as you all know more than anyone, there's a lot of new and exciting funding opportunities out there made possible by the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of information to digest, a lot of deadlines. And the first question many usually have is, where do I even get started? So with EPA's Regional Roadshow, we are on a tour across the country to help communities answer 3 questions. Which program is right for me? What technical assistance or support is out there? And who should I work with? And so at each of these events, we're bringing the Regional Technical Assistance Center, or TICTAC, as well as other technical assistance providers to not only unpack these funding opportunities, but how you can also leverage the support that's out there to make historic change right there in your own backyard. So as of this month, we have completed our 6th event as a part of the Regional Roadshow, which is so crazy to say. And we're excited to share that we have an upcoming stop in Anchorage, Alaska tomorrow, which is where Dr. Mark is currently traveling to. So as we work on additional events throughout the country, we'll make sure to share our announcements through this group as well as EPA's EJ listserv. So please make sure you signed up for that listserv if not done so already. One thing we also hear from folks, I can't make it to these events, but how can I learn more? So we've built out a webpage called Resources to Help Communities that houses program information, easy to read infographics. And this is really a one-stop shop for all of this information on Inflation Reduction Act and EPA's Office of Air and Radiation, as well as the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights. So I'll make sure you all have the link to the registration pages for the Regional Roadshow events, as well as this online repository. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at cer@epa.gov. But thank you so much, and I hope to see you all at one of our upcoming events. Thank you so much, Lakeisha.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Ahmad. That's right. I guess Dr. Mark is on her way to the next roadshow, right? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much for that update. Christina, do we have any questions for Ahmad?
I am not seeing any. I see a few other ones that I think were meant for Sarah. Sarah, I see that you're still on. We actually have 2 questions for you if you have a minute?
Sure, I'm happy to answer.
Great. One of the ones we have is, can building decarbonization of existing buildings qualify as infrastructure?
Yes, decarbonization is one of the categories that we have grants in our database for.
Got it. Thank you. Another question we have is, can services be planning? I think they mean like technical assistance. Can that be used for planning?
Maybe Sunny, if you're able to unmute and clarify, that would be really helpful. But if you mean like for like the planning stages of a project or like planning grants, then yes.
Sunny, if you're on the call and would like to ask, if you raise your hand, I can unmute you to ask Sarah your question. There you are. Okay, Sunny, I'm gonna give you the opportunity. So go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Our organization helps neighborhood residents come together to plan climate action for their neighborhood to reduce their carbon footprint. And I was just wondering if that kind of service can get funding from one of your sources.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, that was easy. Love it. Thank you so much for that question, Sunny. Oh, okay. We do have a question for Ahmad. Oh, sorry. Jada, I see that your hand is up. Apologies. Let's go to you. Jada, I'm gonna... Oh, okay. Never mind. Jada put her hand down. So never mind. Hopefully your question was answered. Sarah, someone noted that they think there might be a typo in your email. Is that... Do you see that in the Q&A?
Yes, there is. Thank you so much for that. There is an I missing, so I'll retype that in the chat.
Yes, can you answer this? Can you hit type answer and put that in there so then everyone can see it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And while you're doing that, Ahmad, we actually do have a question for you about if there's any roadshows planned for Region 6.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christina, and thank you for that question. We are actively working on planning some additional events throughout the calendar year. So if you have any suggestions or if you think a roadshow event would be helpful for your community, feel free to email us at cer@epa.gov, and we'd love to make something happen. So this is actually how we've been planning some of these events that are coming up now. So hopefully we can bring one of these events to your community as well.
Thanks, Ahmad. Ahmad, you and Sarah are gonna jump back and forth and tag team. Sarah, we got another question for you, actually. Are the resources and funding in the platform only or primarily for EJ communities, or those defined as disadvantaged communities in EJ screen?
They're not only for EJ communities. We do have extra measures built in for EJ communities. So very similar to how I showed the project readiness assessment, we have an equity assessment built in as well. If you believe that your community qualifies for EJ funding, but you're not entirely sure, you can take that assessment to get access to additional resources that are specifically for EJ communities. We do work with any community, but in our outreach, primarily do outreach to underserved rural and tribal communities. So it's a huge part of our work, but it's not the only part of our work, if that answers the question.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. We do have more of a request, less of a question about sending resources for for-profit organizations. And I mean, just for my own clarification too, does the platform have that information? Does it have resources for profit organizations?
Yes, it does. So we have resources that are available to for-profit organizations that have projects, as well as we have projects that are in need of assistance from for-profit organizations. Yes, on both sides for either user type. That is definitely, something that we have resources for and would be happy to connect you with.
That would be great. So, Sarah, if you could share your email with Lilia, who has put that in the chat, so that if she needs to follow up and ask you a question on that, I think that would be really helpful. So thank you so much.
Sure.
And then we have more questions for you, Sarah. This is great. Another question is, are the grants funding that are called shovel ready include projects that are for estuary work? I think that's a little specific, but I don't know if you know off the top of your head.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will leave my email for that one as well. And then maybe we can have a longer conversation offline about it.
Great, thank you. We also have a question. Do you work with other federal agencies?
We do, yes. So we have worked with many federal agencies kind of since rolling out the platform, both with our work directly on the platform, but then also our work through another initiative, the 10,000 Communities Initiative, which is where we do the bulk of our outreach to those underserved rural and tribal communities. But we have worked with EPA, we've worked with Treasury, we've worked with Department of Energy, we've worked with USDA's Rural Development Office in the Pacific Northwest specifically. So we've worked with a lot of different agencies kind of in their initiatives. They're represented on the platform as well.
Great, thank you. Another question is, can a public school district use the resources such as these grants on the platform?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. That is awesome. And I'm just clearing a few of these through. And I'll check. I don't see any hands raised. Christy, I'm not sure if your question is for Sarah or for us here at EPA, but the question is, how often is there outreach and how many houses community members do you try to reach? If that is for Sarah, you can try and go for that. And Christy, if it's for us, please let me know.
Yeah, so we do events through our 10,000 Communities Initiative about once a quarter. And through these events, we invite community leaders and project funders to come together and have conversations about what gaps exist in each region to identify what resources are needed. And then we go back to work, we compile those resources and get them ready to deploy in that region. So that's kind of how our outreach works. We lean heavily on intermediary partners as well. So through the channel functionality that I showed a little while ago on the community feature within the platform, those channels are led by our partners, and our partners have a large portfolio of projects and providers that they work with, and they bring them onto the platform, and we identify what resources they're able to share as a part of that as well. So that's kind of how we function on our outreach efforts. And as far as how many communities we would like to reach, the goal of our 10,000 Communities Initiative is to help accelerate 10,000 communities across the country in their pre-development journey by the year 2030. So that's kind of how we're keeping track with that goal and how we're doing outreach in order to meet that goal.
Great, thank you. And I think you may have answered this, but and I think the answer is yes, but I'm just gonna read it out loud anyways. Can a for-profit entity use this platform to find nonprofits in the area who need assistance?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. We've got another question. This is great. What counts as infrastructure? Can building community through outreach or healing work count?
So when we talk about infrastructure, we do kind of work primarily with physical infrastructure. So that's going to look like a water project, broadband, energy, solar, a building, like an actual physical building. So if through you know, kind of creating this community outreach through healing effort, you are also looking to obtain a building and get that fitted in order to provide those services from that structure. We see a lot of community resilience centers on the platform. We actually did a pilot project with community resilience centers, helping them obtain that type of funding. So aside from that, the only type of grant funding that we currently have on the platform that's not physical infrastructure is workforce development. And that is primarily to build out the workforce needed to implement a project. So aside from that, we don't typically, you know, work with the non-physical infrastructure aspects.
Sarah, you have an invitation to present at a conference in October.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
I will I'll go ahead and leave my email, and I would love to chat about that.
All right. I also just want to keep an eye on time. We do have someone with their hand raised and another question in the chat, but we do have other presenters at 3 p.m. So just trying to be mindful of time. I'm going to read, actually, I'm going to go to the hand raised right now. I see Alexandra Polizos Hubner. I'm so sorry if I said that incorrectly. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to unmute if you'd like to unmute and ask your question. Alexandra, can you unmute? All right, well, hopefully they'll be able to do that. But in the meantime, I will go ahead and we're gonna read. These are getting pretty specific, but here we go. Do you include private septic systems and private drinking water wells in terms of infrastructure as it relates to your program?
So that's a little bit tricky because we do work with companies that that conduct projects at a you know, individual household level. So we can help them get the funding that they need to create several affordable housing units or to you know, turn a community fully solar. But we don't work with, like, if that question is pertaining to an individual homeowner, then that wouldn't be the case. If it were more so a business or a nonprofit that was looking to retrofit their building and make it solar, or you know, it kind of, it depends. But I think that's when it gets a little bit tricky. So like I said, if you're at the individual homeowner status, the platform's probably not the best place to find those types of resources.
Great, thank you so much. And Lorna, who asked the question, said thank you. So thank you.
Oh, great. I hope that answered the question.
All right. Okay, just again, being mindful of time. We have another hand up really quickly. Bess Gamble Williams, I'm going to give you the chance. So if you can unmute yourself to ask your question. Okay, I guess they put their hand down. This has been you're answering so many questions, Sarah, so quickly. You've getting everybody taken care of. Love it. Oh, nope, hands back up. All right. Can you go ahead and unmute yourself, Bess? Bess, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
You're kind of distant, but we can kind of hear you.
Okay. Is that better?
A little. We'll put our ears to the computer. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Yeah, I was just getting in and getting on some of the tail end of it, but I'm understanding that you're going to be speaking. You have other engagements that you're going to be speaking in, and since we are in the northeast portion of Texas, where are you going to be speaking next in the state of Texas?
Oh, Bess, is this a question about the Roadshow?
Yes.
Okay, Ahmad, can you take that, please?
Absolutely, and thank you, Bess, for your question. So we will be in Anchorage, Alaska tomorrow, but we are actually working on some additional events in Providence, Rhode Island, in Utah as well. So once those are finalized, we'll be happy to circle back to this group. But Bess, if you don't mind just kind of emailing us at cer@epa.gov, and we'd be happy to make an event in your community as well, if those might not be accessible for you.
All right, thank you. And the reason I asked that is because I'm a United States Marine, and we also travel around quite a bit ourselves with our youth organization. So we didn't know if, and I told them that I was going to join this meeting today to ask that question and to see what your schedule looked like. So thank you so much for that.
And Christina, I have a quick question for Ahmad. I know that at some point the road shows will end as the funding opportunity ends in November. So we also have to balance, right, the desire for there to be road shows with the reality that at some point this year, the road shows will be sunsetting. Is that accurate, Ahmad?
That is absolutely accurate. So with CCG in particular, that one with November looming, we are absolutely going to be transitioning these events, more so focusing on supporting implementation at that point too. But feel free to reach out to us with any additional questions, Bess.
Thank you, Ahmad. And is the website still, what would you say is the best source, the best way to get updates? Like in terms of once a road show is scheduled, would it be our website? What would you say would be the best way for people to get the latest information about the road shows?
Yeah, so I'll make sure this group has the link to our regional roadshow page. So we will have that page with all the registration information. If you all are also signed up for the EJ listserv, we will also send our announcements through there. But I'll make sure to circle back to this group with that.
Yeah, and Ahmad, there is a question in the chat about that. Sorry, in the Q&A pod about that, for a web address and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the regional show, and then also the CER at epa.gov email inbox, and then information on how to sign up for the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights listserv. So folks know how to get information through there as well. And also our Twitter account, which I put stuff on because that's my job. All right, so we're almost at 3 o'clock. So I know there's a few more questions, but we do need to make sure that we give time to our other presenters. So we'll go ahead and keep trying to answer the questions in the Q&A pod in writing as much as we can. But I wanted to just hold a little space here for Lakeisha to transition to our next speaker.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you for so diligently keeping track of questions. And, we'll take the questions that are in the chat and get back to folks. So the next agenda item that we have, we wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about our national program guidance and the open comment period. This was something that was discussed during last call, and we've had some time to sort of reflect internally to think about, kind of how the process went. Are there any lessons learned? And, as most people on this call know, we are a relatively new national program office in EPA. We have a lot of new leaders and transitioning leaders and temporary and some permanents coming in. So we do recognize that we are not operating at an optimal level, although we're getting there. And because of that, we recognize that sort of the way that things had been rolled out might not have been ideal, but we really want to have an opportunity to give some updates. And we also want to provide an opportunity to share kind of what our internal workings and some of the decisions that are made and the rationale behind, the length of the comment period. So we just wanted to take this time to let you all know that we've spent the last month reflecting and looking for lessons learned and way to be even more effective in the future. So we've asked a couple of people who will be new to this call to come and join us. And I'm going to start with introducing Ashani. And Ashani is the director of the Office of Resource Management and Communications. And Ashani, I intentionally did not pronounce your last name because I want you to do that because I don't want to butcher it. So thank you so much, Ashani, for being here with us to talk a little bit more about the process and the direction that we're planning on going in moving forward. So the floor is yours, Ashani.
Thanks, Lakeisha. I do have a very long last name.
Oh,
it's
Ashani,
Johnny.
we're
Something
getting
is
feedback.
something is up with your speaker.
Can you, is it still bad?
Oh, that's bad.
You
I
might have
know
to
you
log
have-
out and log back in.
You have an AirPod on. Is that, did I see you? Okay, I thought I saw that.
Ishani, can you leave and try and come back in? That honestly sometimes fixes it. It's the equivalent of turning it off and turning it back on again.
Thanks everyone for bearing with us. Hopefully Ashani will be able to, I actually had to do the same thing in the pre-meeting, so hopefully that will fix it for Ashani. Thank you so much for your patience.
Oh, that was weird.
Is that better, Christina?
There we go. Yes, that fixed it. That's so odd.
Fixed it. Perfect.
Much
Thank
better,
you. Thanks,
Shani.
Lakeisha.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for the intro. I was saying I have a pretty long last name. So good afternoon, everyone. I am super happy to be here. I am Ishani Padma Perumal, the Director for the Office of Resource Management and Communications within OEJ ECR. And it is absolutely wonderful to be here at my first community engagement call. As Lakeisha mentioned, we want to clarify and address a few national program guidance and the open comment period, which drew some attention at last month's call. So following that presentation, we engaged in a discussion with advocates on the call about EPA not sending out prior notice on the draft guidance. And from the date of last month's call, there was only 2 weeks left for comment. It was raised to our attention that 2 weeks felt insufficient, which was duly noted. We took that conversation to our colleagues at the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, or OCFO, and requested an extension, which they absolutely granted. It also became very clear that we had not sufficiently explained the national program guidance. And we want to take some time on this call today to walk you through a little bit more about the NPGs. With the help from our colleagues from OCFO, who have actually stepped away from their annual training conference to be here. So we are very, very grateful for them for doing that for us. We want to also thank everyone who raised this concern to us at the last month's call and continued to engage with us in the weeks following. We are always so grateful to learn from feedback as we continue to grow as a national program, and we are here to improve how we serve you and your communities, and I cannot stress that enough. I will now turn it over to Dr. Joseph Greenblatt, the Director for the Analysis Division in the Office of Planning, Analysis, and Accountability within OCFO, to provide you with some insight about the national program guidance. I also want to mention that we have John Hall, the Director for the Office of Planning, Analysis, and Accountability, and Beth Burchard on the call. She's the program analyst for the same office, and they're all here to give you information about the NPGs. So with that, I will turn it over to Joe. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the call. It's not often that I get to talk about such a bureaucratic process to the public and to our public stakeholders. So I really appreciate the opportunity. And the national program guidance is really our kind of internal programmatic documents that we make public because we want to share kind of what we're doing and how we're going about doing it. the process itself actually starts a couple years before the documents are released, the summer before, where our programs that issue national program guidances engage with our state, tribal, and territorial partners, and now with the addition of Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, with our community partners. And the main purpose of those meetings is to identify joint priorities that we need to consider as our programs develop their guidances. The guidances themselves, and up until the inclusion of the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights into this process, the main audiences for the guidances are other headquarter offices within EPA, our regional offices, and our state, tribal, and territorial co-regulators that receive the big grants from EPA. And what these guidances do, and I'll explain the timing in a little bit. What they do is they provide some direction to our regions and states and tribal co-regulators about what types of priorities and strategies the agency is going to use to implement the president's budget and the strategic plan for over a 2-year period. And that information is used by our regions and our co-regulators to inform grant work planning that occurs during the summer months and that must be completed before the grants can be issued and the actual money goes to the states and the tribes and the territories from EPA's grants. So that is what constrains our time frame. Because the national program guidances actually implement the president's budget request, and get to a level of detail much finer than what's in the president's budget request. The documents themselves, the draft documents, cannot be issued until after the president's budget is issued. Normally that occurs in February of the year prior to prior to the appropriation year. In this year, it was a full month late because of various reasons. The Office of Management and Budget decided to issue the president's budget a month later, so it didn't come out till March. And so once we got the request for an extension from the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, we immediately contacted the other programs that issue the national program guidances and our lead regions. And one of the big concerns from our lead regions was any further delay in the issuance of these guidance would delay the issuance of those grants, of the money actually getting out to the states, the tribes, the territories, and ultimately to the communities. So that is why we were only able to provide a 2-week extension to the public comment period, and not the full 4 weeks that was requested. This is a learning experience for us because, as I said, the primary audiences for these documents are really our co-regulators in state agencies and tribal agencies, our regional offices. And so the engagement with the community and community groups have really kind of changed the emphasis a little bit. And so we're learning. And I think, moving forward, one of the things that we probably will do in the future that we'll definitely consider 2 years from now when we do these documents again is to issue a press release so that we get the word out more broadly when the draft documents are available for public comment. But we've always had a 6-week public comment period, and it's always been concurrent with our tribal consultation period. And then after we get the public comments, and I want to thank Fence Line Watch. They provided some very extensive and very thoughtful comments that I know both OEJECR and OCSPP are taking very seriously, and they will be included in the response to comments documents that the agency publishes together with the final documents later, in July, mid-July. So that's where we are now, and that's basically the story behind both the national program guidances and the timing for them. So I'd be happy to take any questions and answer them as best I can.
Great. Thank you, Joseph. That was super helpful, and I think a great overview to supplement what we chatted about on the last call last month. As of this moment, there are no questions in the Q&A pod and no raised hands. So we'll give it a couple more seconds there. But I do want to echo the thanks of Joseph to Fence Line Watch to bringing this to our attention on the call last week and for following up via email to myself and some of my coworkers. Ishani, covered it in in her remarks, so I don't have to reiterate that. But just again, saying thank you, and for those comments, we really truly appreciate them and keep them very much to heart. Oh, okay. Well, a hand went up and went down. I know I'm playing this game. But yeah, it appears we don't have any questions. So Joseph, if you could just stay on for a little bit longer in case someone thinks of something that they want to ask. Oh, okay, Grace. Yeah, I saw Grace had a question, and Grace, your hand went up and then went down. Can you raise it again so I can give you the opportunity to? There you are. Okay. Grace, you should be able now to unmute yourself to speak.
Okay. How you doing? I'm sorry, I had another meeting, so I came in at the later end. But I just want to say that in terms of environmental justice, with the community change grant, there is a injustice around that because you have to have for track one, you have to have a partnership with government. And so it's kind of in the city, it's really a political thing when you're competing with other larger organizations who, usually they no matter what they do, they get the partnership. Then when you're a community agency going after to get the partnerships with government.
So Grace, I want to answer that. Lakeisha, you can as well, but I don't think that is correct.
Okay.
No, governments are one. So community-based organizations have to have been a partnership with either a governmental entity, another community-based organization, or a tribe. I'm sorry, let me go back. A government or a tribe, another community-based organization, or an institution of higher learning. So it is possible to apply with, for example, another community-based organization. So I just wanted to provide that clarification.
Oh, so we do have two community-based organizations, but I was told that, oh no, you have to have a partnership with the government.
Nope.
Well, we're sorry, we don't know who told you that. If you tell me who told you that, I can clarify for them if it was someone from EPA, but all of this information, especially the eligibility information, is on our webpage. So I'll make sure I get that into the Q&A pod so you can read through that. And we also have really great frequently asked questions and FAQ document, multiple of those online in both English and Spanish for anybody. So that could also provide some information. And we also have an email inbox. So we just want to, Lakeisha, thank you for clarifying that. And Grace, just so you know.
Okay. So our tech, and I don't want to put her on the spot because she's very good. She's under the impression that we need to have a government, we do have the lead applicant and statutory partner, but that we need to also have a government.
Nope. So you can give her good news.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, because it is very good news.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to be mindful of Joseph's time. Grace, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us about that.
Have another hand.
Yeah, Grace Richardson. I
No,
Can-
Grace, just answer.
oh,
It's Eliza.
sorry, Eliza. Hold on. All right, Eliza. Sorry about that. Eliza, can you ask your question, please?
Eliza.
Eliza, maybe you're having problems
Can you
with
hear
your.
me now?
Oh, there you are. Great.
Okay, I had to do a double unmute. Okay, what the woman was talking about a while ago, the last person, brought to my head things that I have found that make it difficult for new groups to start working with grants and stuff. In Puerto Rico, for the last few years now, if you register as a nonprofit, in the past, you really didn't have to spend that much money. You just have to renew the registration and do a financial report every year. But now they're charging $500 a year just to keep yourself registered. And then you have to do a formal financial statement. But if you don't have any income yet, which is what happens with a lot of the small community groups that are trying to organize so that they can do the projects that they haven't been able to have anybody else do for them, it becomes a problem. And then the other requisites of registering with SAM and other things that are complicated and usually sometimes even need money to get it done, practically leave a lot of the groups out of the system. And I know that EPA is trying to have communities directly get into projects and get their own plans done. But sometimes the other thing I find is that you don't really know how to network sometimes, because there doesn't exist a list where you can find out who's in the area. They're all like, if you don't find out some other way, you usually don't. And even if you take some certain trainings, which I have taken here locally, there's not a practice of providing a list of all the ones that attended. It's impossible at lunch hour to network in half an hour, 45 minutes with more than one or two people in the group. And then the rest of the day you're there taking the classes or whatever. So I was thinking, I've gone to other places, other meetings where we come like from 100 different places. And one of the things that we do is we have a list of everybody that's attending. And there's like a small resume that each one of us puts in there, telling everybody else what you do, who you work with, what you want to achieve. And that way people can find each other. And if you don't have an opportunity to really get involved in the conversation during the meeting, then you have an opportunity to connect later on. You can probably do a quick, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I want to talk to you later, and let's keep in touch thing. And if you want to get more communities to work together, there must be some way where you could make some kind of a list where people can classify themselves under what things they're interested in, and maybe other groups can find out because they go to your list, and that way you can have people connecting and working faster. Because what happens is that you end up having to use one of these big organizations, which is, I don't think is the original purpose of the grant. I mean, we know that sometimes it's good to have people that have more experience, but sometimes you end up having one big nonprofit that is handling 800 and some small community organizations, and you don't have any way of knowing how your case is handled among all those other groups, and you're stuck. And so I'm just saying that in case there's some way that we could transform or add other ways of connecting through the EPA, since this is such a wonderful effort. And I know that you're focusing on helping the small communities empower themselves. And actually, we're the ones that handle our own problems after every thing happens, because the authorities don't come for the first few days, and sometimes for the first few weeks. So the more we can be prepared on a small scale level with the immediate people that are in our neighborhood, we're going to have a better chance to, pick ourselves up again and continue. And I appreciate these events that you're doing where we can really talk and communicate. I think it's really a good things, even in spiritual terms, because with everything that's happening, I feel that you have hope when you see people that are really in this group trying to help the community. So I also would like to thank you for that.
Thank you so much for your comment. And I have a response, and there may be some other colleagues on the call who may have other information to provide, but I wanted to, because this is more of a question about the CCG program. Hold that, a great comment, and I do have a response. I wanted to see if there were any other questions regarding our national program guidance, and if not, we can release our OCFO colleagues, and then we can turn to this question, and if there are other questions about the current CCG funding opportunity. So
I'm
Christina,
not sure, Keisha, because we
okay.
do have a couple of more hands raised. So,
Okay.
So-
Christina, any written questions about?
No, but here's just what I'm gonna ask. Yeah, to the two folks that have their hands up right now, if they're a question about the national program guidance, can you just keep them up? If it's not, can you just take them down and just hold, so we can just hold a little bit of time for Joseph and our colleagues there on the program guidance, because there's nothing in the chat about it right now. Okay, so Kevin, your hand is still up, so I'm assuming that this is a question. Oh, Kevin's hand went down. Okay. So I'm not seeing any. We do have a question, and it's not necessarily for Joseph, but I think it's a larger question to EPA that I'm actually Googling right now because I'm not sure. But Shelley had asked, these documents that are for comment, which I think could be any document really, are they put in hard copies anywhere so that those who would like to read them as hard copies and not on the computer or smartphone could access them? And I know that EPA has library services where you can request printed materials, but I'm not really sure how that works now after COVID. Or not after COVID. I know COVID is still kind of happening, but since the shutdowns and so I know we had a physical library. I know it's not standard practice to print everything and put it in there because that would be very wasteful. I'm not sure what the process is if someone would like to request a hard copy of a document. I think if you request from the program, I think it's program by program, but I'm not really see anything online. I don't know if those who have been at the agency longer know the answer to that.
I don't know either, Christine. I don't know if Joe happens to know. I'm not sure, but if no one on the call knows, that's definitely something we can get back to folks on.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure what the current process is. Oh, there's Joe.
We haven't been producing hard copies for years. Even our budget request to Congress now goes over electronically. If somebody wants a hard copy and they don't have computer access or telephone access, I suggest they just drop a letter in snail mail and they can send it to OCFO or to the program office, and we'd be happy to print a copy and send it to them.
Thanks for that, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, it kind of makes sense that at the Environmental Protection Agency, we're not doing a lot of printing, but I do understand that that is a resource that folks would want. So Shelley, to your answer there, not just for Joe's office, but I think if there is anything that is open for comment, the other thing too is a lot of things we put out for comment, they are PDFs. So if you have access to a printer, that's also an option. And also in the Federal Register, you can get them. So if you feel savvy enough to download a PDF, you could also do it that way, I think. But I honestly, I don't know. We haven't printed, as Joe said, something in so long.
Hey, Lakeisha, that's you just raised a point. I just wanted to remember to say this. So the national program guidances are not statutorily required. Like I said, they're really internal bureaucratic documents that we produce. And therefore they're not published. We do not do a Federal Register notice on those. And that also kind of reflects the way they've been traditionally used and the audience for those.
Yeah.
So I know there was some confusion about whether or not, yeah, to try to find it in the Federal Register notice, you won't find them there.
Right. Yeah. And Chania, I see your comment in the Q&A pod, and I was going to mention this, but yes, FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act is a way to gather documents, but I do believe there is a fee for FOIA submissions. I haven't worked in FOIA in a really long time, but I think that is, I don't know if FOIA is free.
FOIA is free unless
it
it
is free.
goes
It
over
is
a
free.
certain amount of pages.
That's right.
So
The
the
first
total-
100 pages. That's what it is. Thank you. I
Yes.
knew that there was something, and then it's 15 cents per page after that. Thank you, Erica. That is a super helpful clarification. So you can request through FOIA as well, the Freedom of Information Act. And all of that information is on our website. If you type FOIA and EPA into Google, it will bring up the page, but I can also put that in the chat.
Yeah, just one thing, if the document's public, most of the time you don't need a FOIA request, which creates an awful lot of procedural things that have to be done.
Yeah.
Usually just asking the program that's responsible, they'll be happy to share a hard copy with you. FOIA requests mostly are used for documents that are not publicly available.
That is a very
Thanks
great
for that,
point.
Joe. Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Anything else, Christina, on the national program guidance?
It does not appear so. So I think Joe and John, as we have a half an hour left, we want to save room for questions on a couple other things. And I think that's it for the national program guidances as I'm seeing.
Thank you all, and thank you for your interest in this, and look forward to working with you all closer in the future.
Thank you so much to Joe and John and Beth for making yourselves available.
Well, have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you all. With that, I did want to respond to the last commenter. We don't have our CCG team on this call. Some of those members are actually in flight to Alaska to the next roadshow. So if we need to put this on our agenda for the next meeting, we can do that. But I did want to mention that the idea behind, we have a couple of technical assistance vehicles. Oh my gosh, excuse the dog, my unproductive coworker. We have a couple of technical assistance vehicles. And one of the functions of our technical, Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers, affectionately known as our TICTACs. One of the functions of the TICTACs is to help to facilitate partnerships. So please look at our website and find out which TICTAC is in your area and get in touch with them, because that is one of the functions that we have created the TICTACs to perform. And then we also have technical assistance through our contractor Indina, who also is designed to help community-based organizations to deal with some of the barriers that they could typically face in the grants process. So to the commenter, you're exactly right. The whole thrust of these programs is to reduce barriers that community-based organizations have faced in the past with the grants process. And we're also trying to bring people to the table who have just not had the finances, the bandwidth, the capacity to do so in the past. So please look at the website, look for the TICTAC. There's contact information for Indina, and let them know you are seeking help with partnerships. And the feedback that I've heard is that this is one of the greatest needs. So you're not alone, but we definitely want to help to meet those needs through those two vehicles. And we can certainly, like I said, add this to the agenda next month and have our subject matter experts and the people working on CCG and technical assistance to be a part of that discussion.
And for everybody, just so you know that I am in the Q&A pod right now answering questions for the, so I've just dropped links for the technical assistance centers.
Thank you, Christina.
And also some information on the community change grants as well. I dropped that. So we have, all right, great. Oh, and then we did have, I see a question in here of when is the next meeting. This next community engagement call will be on July 12th. Sorry, excuse me, July 16th. I'm so sorry. At the same time, and I will also put that into the Q&A pod, July 16th. So next month. And the cycle of these calls is, and we thank you everyone again for joining us for today after the postponement from last week. There was a lot going on in the office, and so it was just better to do it this week for us. And we truly appreciate you being here with us today. The way we normally do it is the third Tuesday of every month. So that's, and when I send the listserv out, I try to keep note of that, but our next one is July 16th. All righty. So want to go back and keep checking. I'll be answering some of these questions in writing because I think that'll be easier. All right.
Any other hands, Christina? I can't
No
see.
other hands, but
Okay.
there is a question here that I think would be really great to just touch on. And Lakeisha, very much to your point, we do not have the community change grants team on right now, but I do know a little bit of information we have, and this one was from Donna, saying that they attended the Kansas City Roadshow. So thank you so much for doing that. They're just asking, since this is a rolling grant, when can we expect information regarding the community change grants application? Thank you for submitting your application. We are reviewing them, and Lakeisha, you can take this, but I'll just say that I know that we are hoping to announce our first set of selectees next month is the ambition. You know, this program is so important, and we are so blessed to be doing this work. And we had a lot of applications, which is a really great thing. And so now is the time to go through them. It takes a lot of time to do that properly, to have the oral interviews and everything. Our team is working around the clock on it. So I can't say for sure to any one application when you might hear, unfortunately, but we can for sure say that we are looking to announce our first selectees in July. And Lakeisha, please, take it from there.
Thank you, Christina. That's the latest information that I have as well. But it definitely sounds like it would be useful, especially as we creep closer and closer to November, to talk about this at the next meeting, because as I alluded to earlier, at some point, you know, the TA needs to end, because, you know, if the TA doesn't start soon enough, there's not going to be enough time to help someone to go from TA to, you know, being able to submit an application. So the time is now. Check out our website, look for the resources, look for the TA, because here we are, it's almost July. So we really want to encourage people to tap into the TA now, while there's still time to have meaningful TA in order to be able to meet the deadline. So we will work internally to get some folks here next month to talk about, you know, the status of the program. But that was the same update that I got, Christina, about the plan to announce some of the selections next month.
Great. And Lakeisha, I'm so glad that you mentioned, you know, an agenda item for next month. I think that would be a really great thing for us to do to, you know, do another, we've talked about the community change grants on this call before, but I think having a dedicated agenda item, I think would be really great. And I say that because there are a couple of questions in the chat that I just don't think that you and I could answer, you know. One of the questions is, will there be any funding rounds after November closes? We don't know that. And then Donna had another question. Are you combining both track 1 and track 2 together to review? Lakeisha, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, so this might not be the latest information, but we have a whole team, and the team is working on the different tracks, but they're being analyzed differently. So it's the same group of folks, but they do have a different process for each track. because, you know, they're different. One is a lot more complicated than the other. So it's the same folks. So that offers consistency and continuity, but, you know, there's a different process for our internal review of each track, but with the same set of folks.
Thank you. And I'm also going to put into the chat for that question. And so the Q&A pod, I'm sorry, I keep confusing those. We have an email inbox that goes literally directly to our subject matter experts. It is checked every day, multiple times a day. So I'm going to go ahead and put that information into the Q&A pod as well. So if there's something we can't answer, we're not trying to give the brush off. We promise. We're just not the people who can answer that. But we, and Don, I see your note here. Thank you. Yes, I think having an agenda item next month on this would be really great. So we will talk to our subject matter experts about being online for that.
Absolutely. But don't wait for that. Like I said, go on our website, look at the information, get plugged into TA, because time really is of the essence at this point. But we'll definitely give an update, and the subject, we will strive for it to be next month. It is the summer, so, but there should be enough key people, even with leave schedules, to make something happen. So, you know, we'll give an update, and we'll try to get as many of the key people there as possible to give that update. But in the meantime, definitely our website is the best source of information to link you to any updates, as well as to the TA providers. In the Roadshow, just loop it back really quickly to the earlier comment about the need for help with partnerships. The Roadshow is another instrument that we're using to try to facilitate those partnerships. And I've been on one of the Roadshows, and we were actually able to do that. So we have those 3 vehicles that we're utilizing. So please tap into them as soon as possible.
Yes, and we have a question in here from Laura. Next round closes in November, and after that round, there is uncertainty of availability of funding. So I think, Laura, what we meant more is that we don't, at the moment, we don't foresee an extension, and we don't have any other Community Change Grant, Inflation Reduction Act funding on the docket to go out. So I wouldn't say it's less uncertainty, and more of the fact that we have this $2 billion, and the cutoff date is November 21st. And to Lakeisha's point about applying early, that's another thing that we've been, and we have it on our website, but we try to reiterate that applying early is in your best interest for multiple reasons. And one of them too is that this is a rolling application basis. And so as we make our way through the applications and begin to fund projects, that money can run out. We're not expecting it to, but we need to be honest and say that as we allot and fund applications, it is a limited pot of money. And I don't mean limited in the fact that it's $2 billion, but it is not going to be added to. So applying early is in your best interest for that reason as well.
Any other questions, Christina?
I'm checking.
Okay.
Some of these I'm going to answer in text.
Okay.
And just so folks know, thank you for sharing your email addresses with us. Just out of respect for privacy, I'm answering all of those questions privately back to you, because I'm not going to share your information out to everybody unless you give me permission to do that. So if you do share your email and you'd like a connection, if you could put in writing into your comment that you are okay with me sharing that with everyone on the call, then I will go ahead and do that. But that is why you don't see that answer come up to everybody, because I don't want to share your information without asking. All right, I don't see any other hands right now, and these other questions I'm going to go ahead and answer in text, because I want to make sure we get links to everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Our colleague Andy Bessler, who's in our office, wanted to remind folks about, we have a monthly environmental justice webinar series for tribes and indigenous peoples. And the next one is tomorrow at 2:30. Thank you for that, Andy. I'm going to go ahead and respond so everybody has that link in the Q&A pod. Lakeisha, I'm just rolling through them in chronological order to make sure I get everything.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Yep.
The rest of this. All right. I don't see any hands
Okay.
raised. So I know we've got a little bit more time and I want to be able to get to these questions. I know we also wanted to see if we could save a little room to just go through the Community Change Grants webpage so folks could see where everything is on the webpage and then the resources we have. Is that still something we want to do, Erica and Lakeisha?
You know, we're starting to lose people. About half the folks are gone. So I'm wondering if it would be, I mean, to go through the website, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. But since we're going to make this an agenda item for next time, we might want to reserve the bulk of it for then, but it doesn't hurt to just kind of go through the website really quickly. That's what I'm thinking might be useful.
Okay, sounds great. The other thing is once this webinar closes, the Q&A pod closes, so I don't want to lose answering these questions. So I'm gonna try and do both. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen really quickly. If that's all right, Erica, figure out I can do this.
Yes.
Can I?
Yeah, you should be able to share. You should see a green button at the bottom. At least it's on
There
the
it
bottom of
is.
the screen. You see it?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. There we go. All right. There are a few different parts of the webpage for our community change grants that I just wanted to make sure I drew special attention to. At the top of the page, you'll see a couple of bullets. These are navigation pieces down to the rest of the page. On this page, we do have the first section is about eligibility, which gets to the great question we had before, and I'm glad that we could clarify who is eligible to apply under the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which is what NOFO stands for. Sorry, there's a it is a partnership between, it can be a partnership between two community-based nonprofit organizations, CBOs as we call them, or a partnership between a community-based organization and one of the following, which is either a federally recognized tribe, a local government, or an institution of higher education. So just wanted to draw attention to that based on the conversation today. You'll go down, the next section is actually where you find the Notice of Funding Opportunity. This big blue button here is View the Community Change Grant. So that's how you access it as a PDF. And then we also have a copy of it right underneath in Spanish. And also just making sure everybody notes the date of November 21st, 2024. And as I was saying before, encouraging applicants to submit applications as soon as you can. There is information here about the technical assistance that Lakeisha was referencing before. We have technical assistance specifically just for the community change grants. You'll get some information there. And then I want to draw special attention to our resources. So we get a lot of really great questions about the community change grants, and we're always happy to answer them. But also just letting you know that we have multiple resources here in English and some in Spanish as well to answer your questions about the Notice of Funding Opportunity itself, questions about the Community Change Grants program, and then other things to learn about the Inflation Reduction Act, about technical assistance that is not just for this, but just technical assistance in general. So these resources are a great place to be able to get some more information, and that way you can sort of go through it a little and be able to jump to the information that you'd like. We also have been having different webinars and engagement opportunities around items concerning the community change grants. And I also want to draw special attention to the webinars we had for the target investment areas. So a part of the notice of funding opportunity for the community change grants is we have 5 target investment areas. And those are tribes in Alaska, tribes in the continental United States, territories, specifically Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands, and also Guam, American Samoa, and the North Mariana Islands, and southern border communities. And I think I missed one. It's on me. Oh, yes. Disadvantaged unincorporated communities, including the Southwest regions. So I know that there's a lot on this page, and I know that it's really long. I'm trying not to scroll too fast, but I just wanted to let folks know about all of the resources available on here and where to find things. And then these pages link to other resources as well. So hopefully that was helpful for folks to have that. I'll put the address for this into the Q&A pod as well so that you can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Then I get my screen back. And I'm happy to take any questions, but I'm also going to be looking at the Q&A pod because there's a lot of questions that are coming in and I got to answer them.
Okay. Thanks for that, Christina.
Okay, so there's a lot of really great questions in here about the community change grant. I don't think I can answer some of these. Lakeisha, I don't know if you can see them, if there's any you feel like you can. I'm not a subject matter expert on this, so I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Absolutely. Well, since that wasn't an agenda item, but these are very important questions, let's note those and make sure they are addressed when we get the team, at least a couple of members from the team to join next month. And then whatever questions that we can get answered before then, we'll do that. But I definitely want to have the benefit of the latest information from the team. I don't want to respond too specifically without their input.
Yes, for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, a lot of questions about eligibility, and I don't want to answer that because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I will put this again in there for folks for who are asking those questions. I'm going to drop the email address one more time. And if you want to email that inbox, if you don't want to wait until next month, which I completely understand, I'm just going to go ahead and give everybody that a couple of times here so that everybody has it. An answer to your question, because I do not want to not have your question answered.
Right.
And thank you for those who are sharing your email. I will go ahead and send those around. Who can I contact to get an update about the climate pollution reduction grants implementation grants selection process? I don't have a name off the top of my head for CPRG. Do you, Lakeisha?
I don't, not off the top of my head, but we can get that. We can find out and get back to them.
Yeah, I'm gonna, the person who asked their name is showing up as anonymous. So I'm just gonna put my email address in there. Please email me at motl.christina@epa.gov. I can spell my own name. Yes, I can. And we always reiterate this on the calls that our email addresses are our last name dot our first name at epa.gov. So I am motilal.christina@epa.gov. Lakeisha is grant.lakeisha@epa.gov. So if you ever want to find any of our email addresses, that's how. All right. Okay, great. Well, thanks for everybody saying that you're going to submit an application. That's really encouraging to hear. Thank you so much for doing that.
This is a historic moment, historic level of funding, historic new programs. So yes, we want people to apply and tap into the technical assistance while it's available.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Lakeisha, I don't know if you want to close us out. I need to focus on finishing the Q&A pod before the call closes. So I'm going to take a step back here.
Okay, thank you so much, Christina. So Erica, if you want to come on, I mean, and we could leave it open until 4, right? So Christina can have an opportunity to answer the questions. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Christina's already mentioned that the next call is July 16th, same time, 2 to 4. I know personally I'll be heading out of the country for my sister's wedding. So I know personally I won't be here. But between now and then, we're going to work internally to make sure the right people are there to cover the CCG topic. Because it's a whole team. So like I said, even if others are on leave, there should be at least a couple of people who will be able to be there for the call. Anything else, Erica, that folks need to know for next time?
No, just that, again, as Christina mentioned, the next call be the third Tuesday of the month. That's third Tuesday of each month, but definitely next month, July 16th, at 2 o'clock to 4 p.m. And as far as the CCG, we definitely will make sure we get that on our agenda for July to address a lot of the questions that you have, and also having someone on that will be able to answer the questions.
Yes, absolutely.
And also we will have our external civil rights division presenting as well. So you will get updates from them. So, and who else? And I can't think of anything else right now, but I know at least those two will be on the agenda. Oh, we're gonna have an EJ screen update as well. Demonstration next month in July. So definitely stay tuned and definitely register for the next call for next month.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll keep the line open while Christina is responding to questions in the chat. But thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us this afternoon. And just thank you for your commitment to serving these communities. It's been a long time coming for a lot of these communities. So thank you so much for your partnership. And, you know, we could say those of us on the inside working, we are doing the best that we can from our vantage point, and we just really appreciate all of the work that you're doing on the outside. And thanks for your comments, your questions. It helps us to be better. So we appreciate that, and we are better and stronger together. So let's continue to work together. And with that, is Christina, you're back on the screen. Does that mean you're done with it? You are fast.
I cleared the questions. Not my first rodeo.
All right.
Thank you to everyone.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Erica, for organizing these. Thank you, Christina, for just doing a masterful job with the questions. And with that, we will see you all. We, the Collective, will see you all next month. Thanks, everyone.